This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 91, where we're looking at Iron Fist, Season 1, Episode 2, Shadowhawk Takes Flight. Welcome back, Defenders. My name is Chris, and this is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 91, where we're looking at Iron Fist, Season 1, Episode 2, Shadowhawk Takes Flight. Guys, we're here. Please introduce yourself.
Caw. I'm one of your hosts, John. I've just taken flight.
I've not taken flight. This is your other host, Derek. Good impression of a crow there, John.
I know. I'm a Ravens fan after all. Go Ravens.
I like it.
Well, there we go, guys. So we're straight into episode 2 of Iron Fist. Now, for any of our listeners, please remember, before we go any further listening to this is a spoiler-filled review. So if you haven't watched episode 2 yet, press pause, go watch it, and come right back, and we'll wait for you. Okay, now you're back. Good. So the main thing, guys, is obviously this is coming out now on Saturday. This is March 18th. Mm-hmm. It's the day after the full 13 episodes have come out on Netflix. But for the rest of our viewers, and just kind of ongoing basis, every Friday and Tuesday each week we'll be releasing our next episode. So episode 3 will be out on 21st of March, which is a Tuesday.
Yes, it will, hopefully, as long as I can get it all edited and ready to go. Yeah, this is the 18th of March. Luckily, we're not recording on the 18th of March. I feel we may have a little St. Patrick's Day hangover. And once again, did you notice in this episode, we got a little bit of a reference to the Irish, just like in Daredevil Season 2, which started out with the Irish gang getting beaten up on St. Patrick's Day. We have Oh Danny Boy in this episode. A nice reference to Ireland for St. Patrick's Day, the day the episodes were all released.
Absolutely.
I have a feeling someone over there is Irish and he's just plugging this in now. It has to be. There's too many references. Or that just one of them has is 1/8 kind of Irish from Cork because his name's Shillelagh. But anyway, if you're new listeners, please subscribe and listen to us on iTunes, and don't forget to rate and review the over there. Mm-hmm. But you can also catch us on any good or evil podcast catcher such as Podcast Addict, etc., etc. But guys, where else can they give us feedback?
If you want to send in feedback to us, a great way to do it is record your own thoughts over on our website, over on defenderstvpodcast.com. Just press the button over there, record 90 seconds of your feedback, and let us know your thoughts about each of the episodes. If you want to send us an email, you can email us to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com.
Absolutely. And of course, there's always Facebook and Twitter, where you can find us over on our page or our group on Facebook. Just search Defenders TV Podcast. And of course, on Twitter, we are @DefendersCast. Join in the conversation, comment, discuss, and have a right old jolly time.
It's great fun. Always love chatting to the listeners about the podcast.
And of course, over on our Facebook page and group, we will be leaving spoiler-free posts for you to add your comments, add your thoughts on any of the episodes of Iron Fist, or indeed the discussions from the podcast, and we'll read them out on as well. Yeah, so please come on in and join the conversation within the Marvel, Netflix, and Iron Fist community.
Absolutely. I think with all that out of the way, what do you think, Chris? Is it about time?
I think it's about time, because I think everyone who's just probably binge listened to our first episode is on tenterhooks to hear what we have to say on episode 2. So, Derek, do you want to give us the usual rundown?
First off, can I say it's better than episode 1? Is that a bit of a spoiler?
That's a bit of a spoiler.
That's a big spoiler.
I don't mind.
That's a big spoiler. Let's get to the main part.
This episode was again written by Scott Buck, the showrunner who wrote episode 1 of Iron Fist, and it was again directed by John Dahl, the two people responsible for episode 1. I'm glad it was a more enjoyable episode than I had with the first one. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for this episode?
Sure. Danny Rand awakes in Birch Psychiatric Hospital under the observation of Simon, not a psychiatrist, but another patient with murderous intent. The Meachams have committed Danny to the hospital to protect him from himself. Ward Meacham pays a visit to Colleen Wing to convince her to sign an affidavit saying Danny is dangerous, but Colleen goes to talk to Danny instead. Daniel must prove to the psychiatrists, Colleen Wing and Joy Meacham, that he is the infamous prodigal son of Rand Enterprises, or channel the Iron Fist and break out of the facility. Having lost his connection to his chi, his only option is to use a popular confectionery to provide proof of one of his identities. M&M's.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of product placement before, but this is a pretty good one, right?
I like this.
Yeah. It was big product placement. Look, we all used to go through M&M's and pick out the crappy orange ones.
Well, actually, they liked the orange one. It was the brown ones apparently.
Yeah.
And I like the brown ones. I'm much more a brown fan.
I was the
hold on,
same.
Wait. I'm a brown M&M fan. Okay, what's your favourite one?
I'm brown as well. Like, to me, that was just more chocolate.
Yeah, exactly.
I am absolutely awful with M&M's, with Skittles, with everything. I just shove as many in my mouth as I possibly can fit. I never even look at the colours.
Let's move on to actually the top 5 points. But guys, before we do, I want to kind of break away from our top 5 points because just slightly, I want to just to give your quick 2-second thoughts on the episode in terms of did you enjoy it or did you not? Because again, I'm wary of our listeners being a bit fearful on this episode of listening to us. Right. So I'm going to start. This was almost the episode that I wished it was almost the first. If you understand my saying in the roundabout way that I'm trying to say, I really enjoyed this episode. It gave me what I wanted. It gave me more intrigue, gave me more exposition. It gave me depth on a lot of characters. But it was brilliant, and I think that's for now what I want to say. Derek.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. This was exactly what I was looking for from the show. We have an exploration of his powers. We have some really interesting characters being brought in. Even the characters who are only in it for 2 or 3 scenes genuinely mattered in the episode as well. So, yeah, definitely took some learnings from the first episode and put them into this one, I think.
Definitely. This was head and shoulders above the first one. It might have some people still sort of at the pacing in terms of the show, but to me, yeah, it showed his Iron Fist at the end, glowing, him getting his chi back, and that really was the oomph that was missing in the first episode. So yeah, for me, this was really a much better episode of Iron Fist compared to the first one. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that was exactly the Iron Fist moment was just But let's get on with our top 5 points. For any new listeners who are just joining us, what are you doing? Joining in part 2? Go back to part 1 and then come back. But more importantly, the way we used to do it was we each take top 5 points and kind of bring it together. But to kind of we've seen a lot of overlap now. So starting with Iron Fist now, we're kind of just doing our top 5 points, so kind of combined top 5 points. And I want to start off with point 1, which is Simon Says. Mm-hmm. Simon Says hello. This character was brilliant. Just, I'm assuming a random kind of character just there for exposition of the story and moving the plot along. But my God, he was a good character.
He made a great impact, didn't he?
Yeah, that intro as well. I was like, oh, is this one of like Ward's henchmen already caught him? And wow, what's going to happen? But yeah, the brilliant. It does have me wonder, is he just a fleeting introduction or will he play the Hogarth character from the comic books?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was getting...
Had the same thought, Chris. Definitely.
Yeah. Because we lost, so I thought Big Al was going to be it, and then we lost him, and now we have Simon. I'm like, potentially they'll bring Simon as that Hogarth confidant character.
Interesting. Well, I didn't think about that at all because I'm not too sure you want him in stressful situations. No. His reaction to stressful situations is to take a fork and stick it to your throat. Maybe you don't want to trust him.
No, absolutely. But I got the same kind of vibe. I thought they introduced him in a really great way. Obviously, like that whole thing where you think he's a doctor and then he suddenly says, kill yourself, and you're going like crazy inmate or one of Ward Meacham's go-to guys.
Right.
But then just the fact that he helped him to make the phone call to Colleen. He also gave him the tour around the psychiatric hospital. And there was just, it felt like there was a connection. And it was that moment where he takes them round, where he goes round each of the inmates sat down and describes why they're in and that maybe they're not as psycho as their diagnosis would suggest. And he actually obviously kind of wasn't quite as psycho as we thought from the first sort of point in meeting him. So I had the same kind of feeling. I was like, is this going to be Hogarth? You know, like or a similar person who's going to ultimately be helped by Danny Rand. I even just thought that he might just come back and get him released from there and, I don't know, help him deal with his anger or something like that. Yeah. But I definitely had the same kind of thing that he was going to play a significant role in this series. Yeah. But you know what my theories have been like in the past. So.
You are speaking to the man who has the ongoing theory that there is a giant hole in Hell's Kitchen where a giant hand is going to come out of it, and I've yet to be disproven.
That's just for defenders, isn't it, Chris?
Exactly. That's how the hand is coming back. They're going to revive the zombie hand from the hole. Remember
last episode I did predict that Big Al was 10,000 years old as well, so I think I'm going down that hole with you, Chris. I really like this introduction to Simon. He did feel like a character from Legion. I don't know whether you've been watching that show. There's an older member of the group who's possessed by somebody else in the show, with no spoilers, and he just really reminded me of that character in Legion. Really enjoyed him. Simon's introduction, really good idea. It gives me the impression that while Jessica Jones was about PTSD and Luke Cage was about the criminality within Harlem, this show does feel like it's going to be about mental illness and how it's dealt with. So while we know Danny Rand isn't mentally ill, we'll talk about some of the scenes later on, I'm sure, as we go through our points. It does seem to be a bit of a deconstruction in these scenes with Simon about how people treat people who have different types of personalities to the standard or to the norm. He very much says, I thought I was fine, and then 2 days later, I'm now a diagnosis and I've been here for 2.5 years, and that's what everybody else is talking about in the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest tour around the facility. He very much describes everybody and says, this is the name, and now they're called this dual personality disorder or something like that. So I think this is a great thing to bring into a show like this, to be able to explore those type of mental illnesses. It's a really good touch.
Yeah, and I think even just the fact that, with Danny Rand himself, he is, this center of calm, and gravity, the whole element of channeling the energies, balance, and all that, where he's meditating and he's doing his Tai Chi. But then at the same time, you see that he's got an anger, and I think it's even just the different extremes that he goes to within his own personality. Is there more to this? Is it the calm guy who can look like a puppy dog and be jokey, witty, or as when he becomes the Iron Fist, he says it becomes clearer to him, he becomes stronger each time he's in the heat of battle. So there is also that violence and that rawness as a warrior monk, that he is channeling the yin and the yang. It's the two sides of the same coin. Yeah, I'm really interested in that, and I think that probably segues us quite nicely into our second point: is who is John Anderson? You know, and the whole the interviews with the psychiatrist and the interviews with the psychiatrist. That word is becoming a bit of a problem for me. For some reason,
can we just say shrink? It's
shrink.
It will be easier.
Yeah, shrink.
And I apologize in advance for anyone who is a psychiatrist and takes offense to that word, but we're recording late and it's a hard word to say.
But I loved this whole angle of this second episode. You know, this idea that there's all these crazy people out there in New York since the incident. Yes. And I love the tie back to that since the incident with the Shatari mushrooms and you know, how that really there's loads of people saying that they're superheroes and that most of them aren't. It's all in the mind. And I think you know, that plays out so nicely with Danny's conversations and the interviews with the Doctor.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded seeing another character that was in the facility who had claimed that they had superpowers and seen the kind of conversation between him and Danny. I wouldn't have minded that playing out in one scene in this episode. Someone maybe saying that they could read minds or something.
Oh god, yeah, or someone saying he's Captain America.
That'd be great.
Or yeah, exactly. He's just like, I am Tony Stark. And I am the real Iron Man. Like, just playing back to the original Iron Man 1 where kind of Robert Downey Jr. gets up on stage. He goes, he's not Iron Man, I'm Iron Man.
Or maybe this could have been the perfect place to bring back Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin. You know?
Yeah, that would have been so cool. That whole thing of the split personality or the split identity. You know, this hiding in the shadows, keeping the secret. You know, certainly like Spider-Man would do, and all of that, I just think is really a great way of adding a new angle for these shows. And I think ultimately that this is, as you say, this is the lens that is going to be introduced to the Iron Fist series. And I do love how it plays out, where, you know, by the end of it, the Doctor absolutely believes from his conversations with Joy Meacham that he is Danny Rand. And then you just hear Danny carrying on about, yes, well, I'm also the immortal Iron Fist, and there's the City Kunlun. I'm an immortal weapon. And you just see the Doctor's face slide, and he goes, but this is a positive thing, you know, now we can diagnose you, you know, you can have all the pills, all of this, you've got an anxiety disorder with psychotic features.
Yes.
Gosh.
While watching that, I was just shaking my head going, oh, Danny, no, you were almost out, on your way to reclaim your multi-billion-dollar fortune, but now you've gone on to claim that you are the Iron Fist. Yeah, this was really interesting. I have to say, with the mention of who is John Anderson, when the psychiatrist hands over the passport to him and goes, who's John Anderson? I really had the Matrix feeling. If you remember, Neo from the Matrix was Mr. Anderson, not John Anderson, but he was Mr. Anderson in the Matrix. So I was wondering if they chose that possibly as the reference. And of course, John, because John does the best Defenders podcast out here.
Additionally, and we also have Trinity in this series as well.
We do, of course, Hogarth, yes.
Yes, so I say that was just a complete Easter egg for any Wachowski siblings fan out there who like The Matrix. I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I loved this. I cringed when he started talking about the Iron Fist towards the end. It was just, as Derek said, it was like, oh, buddy, no. Just like...
Yeah, stop whilst you're ahead. Oh.
So there's an element to this that I'm still trying to figure out, is does Danny's personality, because he was in Kunlun and all that, is he still, how much was he taught? Like, how mature is he, if you understand me?
Yeah.
In terms of, like, he seems so innocent to a degree.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned on the last episode about it's one of the things that works really well about Finn Jones' portrayal of the character. He does seem really innocent and wide-eyed when he gets back to New York because he was a wide-eyed child when he left and now he's been living away for a long time. So I think that's part of his character, is that he has an innocence to him while he is still an immortal weapon and he is still a fighter. The actual development of him in a city like New York to have those street smarts that all the other defenders have, he doesn't have them because he hasn't been living on the streets of a big city. So yeah, I do think he is a bit more innocent than we've seen from any of the other defenders in any of the other shows.
Yeah, his street smarts are for the Hand.
And the streets of Kunlun.
And the streets of Kunlun. No, absolutely. Like, he's been brought up in effectively a different dimension, and a different world. So, like, as you said, I think that portrayal of him not really getting modern life or New York and trying to see where he fits in, and going about things in a strange way, I think is absolutely spot on for this character. You know,
one of the things I do really like about these interviews with psychiatrists, I think, were really, really good because it did explain a really good reason why Meacham would be able to listen to the thoughts of Danny. You know, there's constantly cameras watching, and Meacham has hacked the cameras in the hospital. I love that Ward questions him on it later on, kind of going, "Do you own these? Did you put in the cameras?" And he's like, "No, I just hacked them. We're all connected. It's 2017. You know, really cool." But yes, we have the big mention, as John said, of the return of the Hand, and the reason why Danny is going to be one of the big defenders. Danny is the ultimate protector against the Hand. He's the only one that can defeat him, according to him. And I love how they make this. They wrap this into Meacham's storyline. Last week we were wondering why it even mattered that he disappeared, that he said he was dead, and he's holed out in the penthouse of the Rand Enterprises building. This episode, it shows it in some great ways. I really enjoy the idea that he goes down to meet Danny in Birch Psychiatric Hospital, and while he's gone, the Hand leave a message on the outside of his window going, "Where did you go?" and leave the hand mark. Really cool. What have the Hand got on Meacham?
Yeah, I have another little theory here. It is that kind of idea, I think, that you introduced, that, you know, maybe Harold Meacham did die and the Hand brought him back to life for their purpose, i.e. that actually Harold maybe is not as bad as he makes out to be. I mean, we see him here that, you know, he has found out a lot by hacking into the CCTV. He's gone to the hospital, yet he still is saying we need to move him to a safe place. It sounds like it's still for fairly selfish reasons because of either what the Hand have on him or what they're effectively bargaining him for. And the role of Rand Enterprises. And maybe, you know, he is an unwilling person in this endeavor. I mean, it was kind of interesting that, you know, when he tells Ward that, you know, you need to move him, Ward challenges that. Ward sees the fact that Danny Rand might go public as a threat, probably to his own personal endowment, you know, and power position. But for Harold, okay, he can see maybe that he has a way out. So I feel that there's a possibility that Harold is actually trapped in something. He's not necessarily a willing volunteer in this, and maybe it's a deal he made way back, or maybe it's something to do with him having died and being resurrected by the Hand. But I just wonder if he's not as bad as maybe. I mean, he's not a nice character. I'm going to say that. You know, poor Kyle. Like, oh my goodness. And I mean, that whole interaction anyway, which we'll come to, I absolutely thought was hilarious, about the apologist that is Kyle. But, I think, well, yeah, you have a lot to say on that, I reckon. Don't you, Derek? But I think, I just wonder if he's also trapped in some way. He might still end up being a bad guy and a nasty piece of work, but I wonder whether he's trapped, and I wonder whether that whole motivation that he laid out here, that he's a useful resource really might come into play for what he thinks would be his own personal gain.
Mm-hmm.
I can have 2 points on this. One, I think they're trying to go down the road of very much that Howard is going to become the new Wilson Fisk. He is a well-known criminal, or we know he's a criminal. We know he's a bad guy, but we are given character depth there that makes you kind of start to almost feel sorry for the character.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the fear in his face when he was trying to wipe away the hand print. He was trying to wipe away the hand. Wax on, wax off. No, but he was trying to... He literally did try to kind of wipe it away. But I think there's more to the story, as we've kind of both of you have said. But this is one of the threads now that I'm like, I want to know more.
Yes.
I want to know...
Definitely.
How is he connected? But that kind of brings me on to my second point, which the hand in it, which was... So, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Styx... group, the ninjas, were they not the rivals or the protagonist to the antagonist that is the hand? But now what we're getting is that the immortal Iron Fists and the immortal weapons are the ultimate rival and kind of weapon against the hand. Yeah. So I'm wondering how this is. Am I messing this up in my head? Or?
No, there's definitely some crossover there, because I know that was the whole storyline for Elektra, really, was that she was going to be taken by the hand and they had to protect her. And she was going to be the one that would lead them to victory, or lead the hand to victory, was kind of the prediction for her character. And then we don't find out what happens with her. That storyline's not resolved. So either they misunderstood the prediction about what Elektra was supposed to be there for, and that has come to fulfillment at the end of Daredevil Season 2. And there's another prophecy or prediction about Iron Fist, that he is the one that's going to take out the hand. And really, that's going to become a battle between Elektra versus Iron Fist, which would be very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. There's obviously, because the hand is becoming a big character within a lot of the shows now, and will be definitely featured within the Defenders. They're starting to kind of build up a lot around the connections to the hand, and some of it's slightly crossing over now. I'm sure we're going to get more about the connection with the hand later on in the series, so I don't want to jump down and say that they've done something wrong just yet with the mythology of who's up against the hand. I think everybody on the good side is up against the hand, and everybody on the bad side is the hand, right? That's kind of as far as we can tell right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely have multiple groups, multiple people attacking the hand in the same way that you could, alternatively, you could introduce a Hydra element with the hand as well. So I wonder though whether Styx Group, were they more about sort of the, combating the hand on Earth, whereas here we are dealing with someone who is in another dimension and realm, and obviously the hand are kind of involved a bit with both, because they're able to do resurrection. Now, how and why? What's the ancient roots to all this, and does it come from another one of the heavenly cities, or from another dimension, so that there's multiple fronts here on this war, of which the Iron Fist is one of these significant weapons.
Absolutely.
In the same way as Styx Group, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm liking seeing the cross-pollination here between the two, because ultimately I suppose it is going to get resolved in the Defenders series rather than here on Iron Fist. But it'll be interesting to see how far it goes, actually, in this, and how far they can take it, if a lot of it is going to be maybe resolved or take place in the Defenders.
A nice bit of intrigue for the next 11 episodes, definitely.
It was just more great that he mentioned the other immortal weapons. So straight away they're teasing at potentially seeing some of the other, the bride, etc., which was fantastic. And then he continuously mentioned, and this kind of brings me back to Harold, Danny mentions the Mother Crane, the Order of the Mother Crane.
He does, yes.
Yes. So, for our listeners who aren't quite aware what Mother Crane is and all that, John, do you want to give us a bit of background?
Yeah, so Mother Crane is she sort of over the heavenly cities, the legendary heavenly cities, of which Kunlun is one of them. Depending on how you read it, in some cases, at various times in the comic book history, like she has been an ally of the Iron Fist, and here certainly, it's the order of the Mother Crane of these warrior monks, so it's teeing her up in that way. Whereas in other storylines, Mother Crane has been a bit of an antagonist, such as in the Immortal Iron Fist series, where she's actively involved with the Steel Serpent, and this hence why we've been talking about Madame Gao as being potentially Mother Crane. It's going to be interesting actually to see how they have run with the Mother Crane on this, because my instinct would be that she ultimately is maybe up to no good, and maybe it's a betrayal type storyline, and it could be quite easily on that front. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and whether Madame Gao could be some variant of Mother Crane here. Certainly because of the links with the Steel Serpent and Davos, because that symbol has been so closely linked to Madame Gao's drug trade. Now maybe she's just acting on their behalf, or maybe she goes a bit deeper, as we heard from season 2, where she goes off somewhere pleasant for more than a holiday, and much, very far away from New York. Yeah. So, she's involved, absolutely. I can't wait to see the depth of her involvement here. But yeah, I mean, that was an interesting thing that came up, really, about being the Order of the Mother Crane. Absolutely.
And what got me interested was that when he says that, or Danny says that, I should say, Harold doesn't bat an eyelid. So that was the interesting piece for me, in that whatever backstory he has, whatever reason he's dead and risen again, or he faked his death and he's in hiding, he has no supernatural kind of full understanding of the hand, etc. He's very much like the accountant for the hand that we met in Daredevil season 2.
Right.
Where I think he's a agent on Earth in New York City, but he has not full understanding of the ins and outs of the hand, who they are, what their ultimate goals are, etc.
Yeah.
I think he is very much let's put it bluntly, to a degree, he is an underling. Now, he has his own underlings, such as Ward, and Ward has his underlings, which is just the guys who got beaten up on episode 1. But he, from a hand perspective,
he's not high up in the organization anyway.
Exactly. They're not building Harold to be the big bad.
Yeah, no, definitely going to be interesting to see what happens to Harold over the next few episodes.
But just quickly to chuck out an extravagant theory, what if he was? What if maybe he peels off his face and becomes Davos? And he's not actually Harold Meacham.
Yeah. I'm putting that up there in the maybe category.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's pure speculation, but I mean,
I love these early episodes because these are all about speculation.
Absolutely. Like, maybe, he's been told to wait. He hasn't left the penthouse ever. I mean, you see Kyle's absolute sort of look of, what are you doing, when he says get the 4 wheels. He goes to visit Danny Rand himself. Okay, it might be because he's Harold Meacham, but maybe it's the person who is there and has been told to destroy the Iron Fist.
But that is a significant risk that Harold went out. If everybody in the city knows this person and he's been pronounced dead 12 years beforehand or 10 years beforehand, and then he takes a car ride down to this hospital, and does a spectacular appearance in the room with Danny. Of course, Danny was drugged at the time, so that can be explained away as well. But he did get out of his apartment and go down to a public building as a dead character, a person that's been dead for over 10 years. So that he was taking a significant risk to meet Danny. So yeah, there's possibility in your theory,
pure
John.
Speculation.
I like it.
That maybe he could rip off his face and he turns into
Red
Davos.
Skull. Oh, Davos, sorry. Okay, let's get on to the next point. Chris, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I want to talk about Ward and Colleen a bit here now.
Go for Ward meets Wing. You have to go for that. Go for the alliteration, Chris.
Okay, so I want to talk about Ward meets Wing. Well, particularly multiple elements of this. So obviously we have Ward, we have Colleen, and then we do have this $50,000 offer, $50,000, which seems quite a small to me, but we can get to that.
I thought so too.
I was kind of like, they heir to a fortune of the Rand Corporation, Rand Enterprises, whichever we want to call it on any particular day. I was like, come on, at least $500,000.
Well, Danny's response told you that that Colleen was being undersold. The minute he sees the check, he's like, they've got a lot of money. You know, even if you don't believe a word that I've said to you, Colleen, you can get more.
Yeah, no, I saw that and I was like, so, okay, how do we want to take this? First, let's talk about Ward, I suppose. Ward, for me, is becoming an interesting character. I think in the last episode I said he was very one-dimensional.
Yes, he did.
And there was not very much depth to him. We're starting to see potentially more. There's the fear of the father figure. He is, as Danny said, a dick, and we can see that more. There's something else there to him, which I'm starting to. There's an element of violence, just simmering almost, and I think
Absolutely.
This is the way the actor is playing it. Like, you can almost see a violence and anger bubbling under the surface, which we've yet to see. Because I have this vision of him exploding and frothing and screaming at something.
I think there's certainly a level that's really being played well in this by Tom Pelphrey. The underlying frustration of eldest son, manager or CEO of a company, but not really, because his dad lives upstairs and tells him what to do all the time, treats him like an underling, says to him, you're one of my guys, you go do this job, kind of thing. He's got a sister who doesn't trust him and doesn't trust his decisions as the head of the company. He's definitely portraying a kind of a seething frustration in the fact that nobody is letting him do what he wants, and he feels like he should be in charge.
Absolutely. I thought when Joy kind of questioned him about Danny, actually, that I just his response was real spot on. Again, it just felt like this really difficult restraint that someone who is borderline like violent would have to do because the door's open, you know, they're at work and all this kind of thing. And I thought it was really interesting that he actually disobeys Harold's orders in that he sends the inmates, or he gets that arranged to beat up Danny Rand.
That's right.
In the hospital, the psycho guy who's actually in there for violent behavior says, you know, this is courtesy of Ward Meacham. So he's got that ruthless streak. Absolutely. You know, he can't understand his dad's motives as well. Why, he would want Danny Rand to be moved to a safe house.
Yeah.
He can't understand his sister's motives as to why she's continually thinking that maybe she has got it wrong or he's got it wrong, and that it is Danny. And that, I think it's ultimately as well from the first episode, you know, we see the younger Ward being equally horrendous to Danny Rand. I mean, effectively, he's a bully.
Yeah.
So it's just like he is losing control of that power.
And just one final point on that, the reaction from Joy to Ward as well, where she goes, Why don't you just be more like Dad and just grow some balls? The reaction from Meacham where he's being told just be more like Dad, and when he's trying to do things that are different from what his father's telling him to do, it's fantastically played. And you can tell it's a sister, because only a sister would know how to neagle her brother as much as possible. But I think this is another indication that Joy doesn't know that Meacham's alive, that Harold Meacham's alive as well. So,
and I wonder if maybe that's his motivation for doing something outside of what his dad has asked for. Yeah. Like, ultimately, maybe he was just going to take a beaten up Danny Rand to the safe house, barely conscious Danny Rand. But, maybe that was the impetus, because, he seems to be on a fairly short leash with his dad,
Yeah.
But I think that also came across when he meets Colleen Wing. I kind of thought he was going to be violent towards her, although he would have gotten, a samurai, absolutely. Yeah. But he was very intimidating with that, but I love the fact that she has such a strength of personality. She's confident in her own ability, from a physical point of view, as well as just purely probably emotional and intellectual. That she's asking those questions of Ward. Why do you want me to do this?
Yeah.
Why do you think he's a problem? Why do you think he's a threat? How do you even know about me? All these questions, she's really sussing him out here, and it really shows her incisiveness.
Yeah.
And then, she can sense the mood as well, and hence why she goes to see Danny as well. But I loved this interaction between Ward and Colleen in a club.
Absolutely. We're talking about performances. That great moment when Ward says to her, I want you to sign a document saying that you felt threatened. And instantly Colleen goes, no. Yeah. It's like, I will never sign a document saying a man made me feel threatened. I could kick anyone's ass. You put them right in front of me. It got her back up immediately and changed the conversation with Ward instantly, where he realized, okay, well, she's not going to play ball here until I pay her some money, until I give her that 50 grand. She's not going to do anything for me here because I've chosen the wrong words. Maybe if I say he was acting strangely, would you sign that document, Colleen? She's like, maybe.
Yeah, it's like, I could say that.
Yeah, nice little character moment for Colleen there as well. But yeah, I really like her in this episode. I like that they're building her up. She is definitely going to be the second lead of the show, the second hero for the show. We knew that going in, obviously. It's Colleen Wing. She's well known from the comic books, but I like how they're building up her character to question those things that the villains at the moment, as we, I guess we'll call them, she's questioning what they're doing in the right way.
Yeah, I really liked her in this. I really loved the fake ambush that she sets up for her trainees as well. It was just, I loved her comebacks against all of them after they've failed miserably to down her or to cause any form of significant sort of injury to her in this tutorial. And I mean, it's like, proper, like, okay, calm down, Colleen. But it was like, try and sound less like a fat duck, she says to one of them. I can hear your footsteps from miles off. I can smell your garlic breath from a block away. And then finally, poor Jenny. It's like, what was that, Jenny? Yoga? You're like a fat pig swimming in gravy. I was just like, oh my God. Harsh tutor. She is a harsh mistress, but I absolutely loved the comeback. And I mean, it was just so good. Like, she's totally driven. She's like, I'm not giving you any kind of BS. I'm just going to tell you how it is. And it's like, you're not nearly close enough to being my equivalent.
Well, if they're offended by what she said to them, they definitely don't want to be training with stick, do they?
No.
Well, that's true.
I did have some questions about this scene, though. It was just, I need to know more about, like,
on the streets training in New York.
Yeah, exactly. What this is about. So, because also, these are not the kids we've seen, or to my knowledge, these are not the kids we've seen so far in the dojo.
Right.
So is this another set of kids?
I presume it's a more advanced class because the other guys were just doing basic moves. So this would be a more advanced class where you take them out in the street to put their ideas into practice. But it's another reason not to walk around the streets of New York late at night, just in case you get ambushed.
Absolutely.
In a training exercise from a local dojo.
And she's wearing a sword in public.
No, that was the trading stick that she was carrying, not a sword. I did think that as well, though, Chris.
Yeah, no, I thought that too, but it was definitely the training sword. But like this was almost like guerrilla warfare. This was like the street level training, just taking it out of the classroom.
Yeah.
So maybe she's more intimately involved with what's going on the streets in some way. I mean, that's the thing. I think, is she putting her own group together for some reason? Is it purely protection? And if so, from what? If the club is in, Chinatown or, one of the, predominantly Asian neighborhoods, then maybe something like the Hand is well known to her as well, and she's building up some kind of team. But I did kind of like the street level guerrilla training that she was doing. But it'll be interesting to see if they come up again, or is it just was it just something to kind of get our juices flowing to thinking, oh, she's in danger, and then just kind of keep it as a training exercise, or will this develop further? But again, it's early days, and I think
the idea that she has no connection at all, and this was just something to make us think she did have a connection, but it turns out it was just a fight, just a practice day out with her crew.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I just didn't get it initially, and I'm like, okay, makes sense now, I suppose. Now that you guys have explained it, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
That's why we podcast, Chris, though.
I know, but 60-minute episode, 55-minute episode, and we talk for an hour and a half over it.
I know.
It's just the way that we do it.
You've got to talk for more than a minute about every minute of the episode, right? That's the way it works, right?
Of course.
Do you want to take it on to the final point that we have for this episode?
I'm going to, and I'm sure every one of our listeners has been screaming into their headphones nonstop, going, "When are you going to talk about it?" Remember that scene in The Simpsons where Homer's watching goes to the cinema, and it's just trailer after trailer after trailer. It's like, get on with it. Well, okay, guys, let's talk about it. The immortal M&Ms and the power of the Iron Fist.
Yes, I love this.
We finally got to see Danny channel his chi, and the glowing fist brighten our day and brighten this episode as he smashes down the door that we had seen in previous trailers. Mm-hmm. And even though we'd seen it in previous trailers, it was still good to see again. And that's something that I was like, okay, I even knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But they also they obviously shortened it for the trailers because there was a couple extra seconds where you see the first jump and how he jumps towards the door, which was very cool. And it makes sense now that outside of the trailer of why he's busting down a door. Because I think I had talked about was his arch enemy doors at one part. He likes breaking down doors. Iron Fist. Door killer.
I am so glad they extended that trailer into a 13-episode series.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I loved this scene and building up to it. I loved how it was the smile on his face every time he got hit. Like the kind of smirk and the camera focusing in on it. The guys were using wooden kind of almost truncheons or something like that. And I was thinking, ow. But he's got the bit of blood dripping down his face, across his brow and all that. But I loved the kind of that concentration, but with the kind of gritted teeth grin. And it kind of just, that to me was really cool. And I loved how it came back as I was watching it. Every punch makes things clearer, and it becomes clearer and clearer. And then just seeing the glow ripple underneath the straitjacket arm, I thought was perfect. And then he just takes out the loons in the loony bin, and it was great.
I had to admit, that face it took me a second to figure out why he was smiling. I was like, oh, every punch makes it clear, okay. And then obviously the adrenaline is kind of burning off the drugs, and he's able. And then I saw the flash. I was like,
that was a DC Marvel crossover.
Well, I did like the reference earlier on in the episode where he says, I am an immortal weapon. At the center of a fight is where I feel most clarity.
Yeah.
That's a great little lead into this happening later on in the episode.
His chi becomes undrugged.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And we had this conversation separately off the podcast, John, about
how could you?
Dun, dun.
They're talking behind my back. I'm gonna find there's a podcast out there where it's just the two of them.
It's called Gotham TV Podcast. And we had discussed about Danny Rand, where I had this opinion because I am the one that knows least probably about the Iron Fist character, as we mentioned before. I had this opinion that he was very centered, and he was all about the chi, and he was all about the relaxed kind of character. And you were explaining to me that is one of the central points of Danny Rand's character is that, yes, he's centered, but he also can fly off the handle at times. And this is something that we're seeing throughout these last two episodes.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I just thought was fantastic. Just from that focus in on his face, and as he's kind of like, a smile, an inner smile just forcing its way through the gritted teeth, I thought was excellent. That to me encapsulates Danny Rand. He's finding his chi and the power of that force within him, and then just to see him, again, the kind of the way he jumps up to bash the door down, I thought absolutely spot on. Like the only weird thing I thought from that, which was a bit strange, was as the nurse comes in and opens the door to presumably take away his body, or at least his beaten up body, Danny Rand pushes him with his iron fist, and I expected the guy to be flung further. But maybe he was controlling it enough. Yeah. But I just wondered if it would have been a nice touch if, I don't have any problem, but I wonder whether it would have been a nice touch just that the nurse kind of just gets flung to the other side of the corridor or something like that.
I know what
just
you mean,
even with just a slight touch, just again to reinforce that power that he's got in his hands.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I kind of get the feeling the difference between Danny and some other superpowered people is that the whole point of his power is that he's channeling something into his fist, so he's channeling it, therefore he has control over it.
Absolutely.
Which is the big difference. If it was Supergirl, or if it was one of those characters that has just gotten a really strong, powerful body, they may not be able to control it.
No, absolutely. But I think just as a way of, again, further highlighting the power that he holds, that just even with a little channel, he could push this guy maybe across the corridor. Plus, he'd been forcing drugs down his neck.
That's true.
And had been restraining him really hard as well. So, I thought, well, yeah, he kind of deserves it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he should have also, because the guy walked him into potentially a 4-man or 3-man beating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I agree with John on this one. It's like, even though he has the control, I would have just as like a pinky flick. It's just like, ding! And the power of his mortal iron pinky flies the guy across the room.
It glows pink as well.
I presume he was also restraining himself in the punches on the guys that beat him up, because if he used the same power that he used to knock out an entire door and wall while punching them, it probably would have killed them. So, yeah. Power of the Iron Fist, obviously one of the things that we did have in that point was the immortal M&Ms, the little connection between Joy and Danny. She's now fully convinced that he is Danny Rand. So that's a nice little touch. I thought that was quite sweet, actually. It does feel like something that kids would do together. That
I see what you did there. M&Ms. Sweet.
That's sweet, yeah. Exactly. You know what I mean? I think it is something that you would remember from your childhood friend if you always shared packs of M&Ms and left one to the side.
Absolutely, and she's obviously got a sweet tooth because she's got an entire box of them in a cupboard behind her desk. She must get really, have chocolate stress attacks in work.
If I was a billionaire, that would all be wine gums. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah! Just an immortal bag of wine. Yeah. Everything's immortal at the moment. Yeah. An immortal bag of wine.
I would probably have an immortal bottle of gin.
Oh, yeah. At a certain point, you want an immortal wine gums and an immortal gin, and then like a one that's just mixed, and that's your immortal liquor of like Kung Lung.
Exactly, and it could soak the immortal jelly babies in them and get gin infused.
Right, let's enough on the recipes for alcoholic drinks. Chris, do you have anything left on that point?
Yeah, I really actually like this. I agree with you. I think it was a nice touch. So I really actually liked the actress here, Jessica Strobe, because she reminded me so much of Deborah Wall in this. Obviously, Karen throughout the season 1 and 2 of Daredevil, she had that breakdown moments, and then Jessica in this episode, right at the end, had that breakdown moment, but it was a elation breakdown versus the breakdown of Karen, which is usually the world is falling apart.
Right.
They reminded me of it was quite similar acting style, or I don't know what it was about it. It was nice. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I think it was like, oh my God, my friend who's I thought has been dead for 15 years is alive, and I threw him in a loony bin. And then fade to black.
Yeah, it was quite cool. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that realization moment. The moment that she had with the receptionist as well, where she was kind of going, but what if it is Danny? And look what we've done to him. But, yeah. And she goes, but it's possibly not. She goes, yeah, but what if it is? Because she's still fighting for the possibility. You might as well check it out. It's not going to cost you anything, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it answers our question from our first podcast, which is like, you know, she maybe wouldn't necessarily have chosen that route, you know, that's a Ward thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Ward's first reaction is, let's do a lobotomy on him, or, you know, or electroshock therapy, you know.
But they don't do that here.
Exactly. Anymore. It's like, Ward just goes for the extreme every time.
So, boys, I think that's the end of all our points. Do we have some newts?
I think we have a few.
Yeah, got a few.
Definitely liked the kind of playing into my theory of Harold Meacham coming back from the dead. Did you notice on Ward's phone he's called Frankenstein?
Yep.
The doctor that creates the Frankenstein monster, or possibly just there wasn't enough space for the Frankenstein monster on the phone,
which would suggest resurrection.
Yes, though. Exactly, or just being recreated from the dead.
Yeah. And then also, for any of our eagle-eyed viewers / listeners, Kung Lung now apparently in the MCU is on a 15-year cycle versus a 10-year cycle in the comics.
Yeah,
I noticed that, and I know Danny said kind of or thereabouts, just to give you a little bit of clarity, kind of just to muddy it a bit. He kind of says, every 15 years or so, because it could be 10 occasionally, it could be 15.
Yeah, it's on a mixed fabric wash at 40 degrees.
And then I have a question about this. There was the scene with Ward takes out the pill case.
Yes.
And then pops a pill. Do we think he's a junkie? What is it? Valium? Is it just a breath mint because he felt he had a bit of halitosis at that moment?
After the day he's had, I think it's possibly Valium.
Yeah, but it does lead to question: is he potentially a drug user?
Yeah, absolutely. Or is he, siphoning off a bit of Madame Gao's product? Although he didn't snort it.
No.
He didn't snort it. But maybe she deals in other things than cut heroin.
All right. And the other thing is, I did look it up. Kyle does say that he's done some internet searching for Iron Fist. I did look it up. There is, in fact, Iron Fist Brewing, which does produce Iron Fist beers. He says the two things, a brewing company and clothes. There are. If you look, ironfistbrewing.com and ironfistclothing.com do exist.
Absolutely. I did think that the Iron Fist clothing was going to be a bit more hardcore than what we see.
It's
just t-shirts, ladies and gentlemen. It's not potentially
anything else.
Anything else. That may involve a large amount of leather.
I will say the models that are wearing these t-shirts do seem to be very tatted up, though.
Yes.
I think I may be buying myself one of those t-shirts.
I thought you might.
Some nice one.
I might buy a crate of that beer.
Back to my color theory. Did we notice that whatever way they lit Colleen's dojo in this episode, you had the yellow and the green.
Yeah, that was quite cool, actually.
That's very cool, yeah.
So I'm wondering if we missed it in the first, or whether this actually is will the light scenes in such a way now that we'll get the yellow and the green in different points.
Nice catch there, Chris. Nice catch.
Yeah, absolutely. I really thought it was great that this episode, people started calling him Danny.
Mm-hmm.
So, actually, good old Simon, he was the first person to call him Danny in the hospital. Obviously, Colleen eventually learns his name, but just automatically calls him Danny.
Mm-hmm.
Joy realizes that he's Danny, shouts his name out in sheer joy. And of course, the Doctor.
Yes.
So there's all of a sudden his anonymity, the questions over his identity have all been resolved. And I love the fact that it was Crazy Simon, actually.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really nice little moment as well. I
Yeah.
just thought it was really nice
Yeah,
that Danny notices this and just brings it up with him. And that's, I think, maybe another reason why, just coming back to an earlier point that Chris made, that hopefully there might be something a bit longer lasting here between these two. Like he rescues him from the psychiatric hospital.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
But we'll see. Yeah.
So I'm going to jump back in. The episode title was Shadowhawk Takes Flight.
Mm-hmm.
So we do know that it's been confirmed that every episode is named after a Shaolin-based kung fu move.
Right.
This was Danny trying to attempt to realign his chi and control that hawk, which we now know is an internal hawk, not a real hawk. So my point about episode 1 was, is he actually trying to see through the eyes of a hawk? It's not true.
Right.
It's his way of showing his chi, I suppose, or his alignment of the chi.
Uh-huh.
But the martial arts move seems to be almost a kick.
Right.
The Shadowhawk Takes Flight looks like a kick. Again, when you're Googling these names, typically it's an article about how these moves' names are in Iron Fist.
Yeah.
There's 20 articles you'll find. So I'm kind of scraping barrels here. I'm going by Google image search and kind of assuming that if 60% of the moves look similar, when I Google this move, then that is the name of it, and that is what it is. So yes, it seems to be some almost like you're one leg down and one leg up at an almost, let's say, almost towards 2:00.
Okay.
You're standing at 6 and you want to kick 2.
I think I definitely need to get those martial arts lessons very soon.
Yes, I'm not that flexible either.
No, I know.
Love it. Excellent. Thanks for that one, Chris. We will come back to that for the next episode, I think.
Yep.
My final note really here is I am loving Kyle and Harold Meacham.
Oh, absolutely.
I have to say where he goes, unless Kyle is an idiot who can't do a simple research when he's trying to find the monastery or the Order of Mother Crane, the fact that he just keeps questioning why he's saying sorry, and he's kind of like, I don't give a shit, I just want to try and help you out, kind of thing. Like, there is almost, obviously a bit pared back, but it's almost like another version of Blackadder and Baldric to some extent, like in a really good way. It's just like he's so dismissive of Kyle, and Kyle is kind of slightly kind of wide-eyed, kind of caught in the headlights type of look. I must say, I'm loving the to and fro between these
Definitely.
two. Absolutely.
It's really enjoyable. I must say, really good fun.
So, to wrap up our final point, Derek, I believe you got one that you want to take us away with.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling. See, we all have to sing that. We are the Irish-based podcast.
Oh, Danny boy.
On the Defenders. John's going to continue on with that for hours. Yes, in this episode, we do get some lyrics from a pretty much a classic, traditional Irish song, originally set to the theme of the London Derriere. Which I do love how that's pronounced. Really good. The lines that were taken from the I think it's from the third verse. And I am dead, as dead I well may be. You'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me. Loved that this was mentioned by Harold Meacham to Danny Rand, two characters that were thought to be dead before the series started, effectively.
Definitely.
So they have this moment between each other where he's quoting lyrics from a song about the person coming up and finding the dead body and singing an Ave. That's quite cool. I thought that nice use of a really overplayed Irish song, particularly around St. Patrick's Day.
I absolutely loved, it's something we both have in common, that death, and it's just done in such a way because like Harold is kind of creepily there, softly spoken in the shadows, so yeah, really good.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, guys, so I think that's all our notes. I think we've covered our top 5 points, so it leaves one thing that we must partake in towards the end of this podcast. John, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist, Eagle Takes Flight?
I do defend this episode of Iron Fist. I would give this 3.5 psychiatric Simons out of 5. I have to say, I was debating about whether to give it a 4, but I kind of feel that the show can probably still give a little more, actually. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy to revise some of these with experience gained. So at this moment, this is a definite improvement on the first episode. I absolutely loved the psychology, the psychiatric hospital element of this idea that are these people like crazy, that the superheroes, are they actually crazy, this split personality? I love the exploration of that, and I think this is a really cool approach to take for this episode, and certainly when it's executed so well with that final chat between the Doctor and Danny Rand, where Danny's on the cusp of being released from Birch Psychiatric Hospital, and he then starts wading into Kunlun on a different dimension. I'm an immortal Iron Fist, and I'm a warrior monk, and all this. And you just see the Doctor kind of go, right, that's another 10 years in here. And I really liked that. I thought it was excellent. I thought Harold, with the "where did you go" and the handprint on his glass after visiting Danny, really good little tie in there, and link back to Daredevil. And the hand, and even just the fact that the two of them come face to face, connected by their disappearance and death ultimately. Really cool. And I think we see development with Ward and Joy and with Colleen, which is really interesting. I love this idea that maybe he's a completely and utterly drug-riddled rich boy that hopefully won't last too much longer. In that sense, not just that he's going to get his comeuppance because he's a bully. I think like we've worked out that he's not just nasty; he's a bully nasty. And of course, then we have Simon, and I just thought that was a great opening between him and Danny Rand, and I just thought it was a really nice character to play with Danny Rand in this hospital. Really cool. And I'm going to say 3.5 psychiatric Simons, but it could be, given my split personality, it could be 4 psychiatric Simons.
Very good. Very good.
I just can't decide. 3.5 to 4. There you go. I'm going to say it now.
Excellent.
So then, Derek, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I do defend this episode of Iron Fist. I think I was pretty much off the bat at the beginning of this episode. I think I wanted to say I was very happy with episode 2. I'm delighted with what they're setting up. Exactly as John said, I'm delighted with what they're setting up and what we hopefully will get to explore of all of these characters in the future episodes. That always feels like the right impetus for me when you're in episode 2 of the show. Broadening out all the characters and taking them on their own individual journeys is always the right way to go. So, really excited to see what's coming up in the rest of the series. Chris, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
Yes, I do. I was going to make a joke there, but it's too important. I do defend this episode. They took a lot of what I disliked, or what I not disliked. Disliked is probably the word I used in the last episode.
Yeah.
They took a lot of what I disliked about that, and they kind of addressed a lot of that here and now in this episode. This does make me feel that potentially an episode 1 and 2, if this was cable TV, this would be the pilot, and the first 2 would have been kind of slotted together in an hour and 20-minute kind of opening. That's how I felt it was almost kind of threaded the story.
Yeah.
They expanded on characters who I thought were very one-dimensional. They gave them life. I don't know whether it was the cut. I don't know what about the first episode that this tops on so many levels. I can probably a lot of the things we've talked about, but overall there was something I preferred a lot more. The one key moment for me was in a superhero show, we got to see the superhero.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that was one of the biggest points and the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
In every other Marvel Netflix show, in every other Marvel show, you always see a power. Just enough to tickle your interest and draw you in. And that's what this has done. This is after episode 1, I could have taken or left the episode. This has made me interested to want to binge directly onto episode 3.
You're absolutely right. This is seeing those 2 episodes, as most people will be seeing them back to back. Probably the right way to watch them. I do think watching the first episode on its own did kind of hamper our ratings for the first episode, but I still stand by what we said about the first episode.
No, exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
But the second episode, a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, point in my wrap up that I missed is, we see the Iron Fist. And I actually think Finn Jones's portrayal of that, I say, that shot back onto his face as he is realigning his chi, sensing it and becoming the Iron Fist, it is very, very cool. That's a great little moment from this episode as well. So definitely a 4.
So does he become the Iron Fist, or is he always the Iron Fist?
He is the immortal
Time will
Fist.
tell. Time will tell. So guys, that is, we defend unanimously. We want to get on to episode 3, but before we wrap up, we have a bit of feedback, I believe, Derek.
Our feedback from the episode, the first one comes from Ronaldo over on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. Ronaldo says, I think I've got the show. I've been watching episode 2 now, forgetting about the Kung Fu and the superheroes and just watching it for what it is, a guy who claims he's someone, but no one believes him. It's actually really compelling. Added to that, Harold showing more of a darker side, and it's pretty good.
I have to say, I really liked the second episode from that angle. With obviously Crazy Simon, we get to see the Iron Fist and the channeling of that power right at the end. As I say, I still think that pan in camera on his face as he's being beaten by the 4 inmates in the psychiatric hospital, I think is still really, it's such a telling way of showing him becoming clearer in the heat of battle. Everything else, that idea of crazy or sane and trying to prove your sanity, really interesting.
Yeah,
and I actually like that. I think that's also a good idea for just any show in general, be it Marvel, Netflix, be it an MCU film, be it Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., take it for what it is. Right now, we all have a culture of having to know exactly what it is, it having to have certain beats, etc. And we go into a lot of that in our discussions when we deep dive. But not all these things are enjoyable. So just enjoying them for what they are. And yes, when you can explain and look deeper into some of the directing, the story writing, the themes, the thematic undertones that they bring it, that's great. That's even a better part of it. But there's nothing to say, like we said with the 1970s Doctor Strange TV pilot / film, if we just didn't kind of roll with it and we compared it to today's cinematic style, we would have torn it apart. But if you enjoy something for what it is, for when it was built, what it's trying to do, and then also looking into it and kind of discovering it, then that's a good thing too.
Absolutely. And the final piece of feedback comes from Donald Dennis. He's feedback on the first episode. Already listened to the first podcast. He says, "Hey guys, thanks for the latest episode. Can't wait to hear your opinions on the rest of the season. Your evaluation of episode 1 is pretty much spot on. I liked episode 1, but didn't fall in love. It was better than a lot of TV, but not quite as catchy as some other MCU shows."
Yeah, there was nothing offensive of episode 1, but there was just that one aspect of whether it was to do with the power of the Iron Fist or some kind of shocking revelation or action that went on that just was missing, like you had gotten in Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Daredevil.
Yeah. I discussed this with not just the podcast, I discussed it with other people. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
It's okay, but more importantly, when we started discussing it back, I'm like, okay, this was not the best opening. And that's fine. It's not everything can be gold. Second place, silver, bronze is still good. There's a reason kids get participation trophies today.
I do not agree with participation trophies. Chris does not speak for the opinions of this podcast.
Okay, participation trophies is maybe too far, but it was still an okay opening. It was not the best. It was not the worst I've ever seen. And I think that's okay. I think what they've done is, look, if it had have stayed at that level, we potentially would have probably just binge watched and just did it all in like 1 or 2 episodes. Yeah. We can assume that, like, looking at episode 2, it's gotten better. Yeah. And it's potentially going to get better and better each episode. I'm down to try some more.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your feedback, Donald. Thanks for listening to the episode. Thanks to all of our listeners for listening to the episode. It's great to have feedback coming in now after you've been watching the episodes. If you want to record some audio feedback for us, as I said earlier on, just go to the website, go to defenderstvpodcast.com. There's a little button over the side. You can record 90 seconds of your thoughts about each and every episode of Iron Fist, and we'll play it as we go through our coverage of the show. And there will be a prize at the end of the season. We'll be putting all of the people who have put in their thoughts and their feedback throughout the episodes into a hat, and at the end of the season we will be especially selecting one person to win a Marvel prize. We know what it is right now, but we're not going to share it just yet, but it is a bloody good Marvel prize, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So guys, that is it. Mm-hmm. That is the end of episode 2 of our podcast, or I should say end of episode 91, where we look at Iron Fist season 1 episode 2, Shadowhawk Takes Flight. You can of course contact us on our website, as we've said there, and we've got a great prize. If you're over on Twitter, you can find us at DefendersCast, and we're all, one of us is always on there, mostly Derek. And if you're over on Facebook, you can like us on our page at Defenders TV Podcast, or why not join our group? There's a good few of us. Like we're a good score now, at least, and there's a lot of fun and interactions where it's at. Just basically search at Defenders TV Podcast and you'll find us. And there you will have spoiler-free, mostly conversations about Iron Fist, but also anything Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and it's all leading up to Defenders later this year. Mm-hmm. Don't forget to subscribe at defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes or on a podcast catcher. Just find us there. And we will be back on Tuesday, 21st of March, with our review of Iron Fist Season 1, Episode 3, Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch. I'm just going to have fun saying that all the time. Yeah. Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch.
Love it.
That sounds like there's going to be a lot of fighting coming up in Episode 3.
Yes, or they're going to be playing a wonderful Commodore 64 game called Rolling Thunder. One or the other.
Yeah.
This just sounds to me like it's almost like the end of like one of those anime during a big fight. Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch! Exactly. And you just kind of like, wah!
Or it's a moving Street Fighter. What are the other?
There we have it. Thank you so much to all our listeners for joining into our ever so rambling rambles of this episode. For me, I'm Chris, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back again on the 21st of March. Looking forward to getting back to episode 3 of Iron Fist.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be with you next time.
Yes, it's only in the middle of a fight where we come alive.
Speak for yourself. Bye.